Well, birthdays are usually a moment to remember and celebrate. For some, it's best celebrated with a book. Well, they put together their thoughts which help shape a future either of an individual or a people. Now, former President Goodluck Jonathan is a happy man, and I'll tell you why. At 61, he's got a lot going for him. Trending now is his latest book, My Transition Hours. Well, in a brief remark, former military head of state Abdulazeez Abubakar said Nigeria is not at war today because of the decision by President Jonathan to concede defeat during the 2015 election. I'll give you a quote there. "We cannot thank you enough for the peace we are having in the country today, for the peaceful transition we had when you freely and voluntarily conceded defeat," Mr. Abubakar said. And he goes on to say, "By your decision, you have shown that you love your country more than you love power." Well, also, former President of Ghana, John Mahama, said Mr. Jonathan was more of an academic who found himself in politics. Now, hear him. He's not your typical politician. We aren't done with birthdays and book launch. National icon Bala Yusufu, who turned 60, and I've been reading his book. He released, his book on export architecture roadmap, the Nigerian and global perspectives. Now, I've had some quiet time with this book. Well, he looks at the meaning of export and talks about how you can be an exporter and draws up business plans, export products, the challenges, and pretty much more. Well, Yusufu, who's the Director of Corporate and Government Affairs, West Africa for Cadbury Nigeria, just like President Jonathan, had not only gifted us a book, they've also attempted to bring back the reading culture. What's the political reading like in Nigeria now? Stove on, pot on fire. It's cooking time. It's Political Stew. I'm Sulaiman. I led a welcome sludge of stew, many call it, but I think pretty much a whole lot is happening. What are they all cooking? Now you can get to watch us live on the go at tvcnews.tv/live streaming. We're also live on YouTube, TVC News Nigeria Live, and youtube.com/Political Stew. You can also watch us live on Facebook, and remember to download the Political Stew app on Google Play Store and follow the show and news on politics. And the big news, Political Stew is now on the iOS. So if you have an iPhone, you look out for Political Stew and get it done. Now we'll take a moment. When we'll come back, we'll be looking at what exactly is happening, who's trying to actually take over some states right here in the country. A whole lot is happening in Nigeria. 2019 election, the pretty much long road is actually getting close to a destination for pretty much a lot of politicians. And a state in focus today on the show is Kwara State. And joining me now is Abdulazeez Oniyangi. He speaks on his agenda, and he is the governorship candidate for the New Progressive Movement. Good to have you join us on Political Stew.
Yeah, good evening, Suleiman. Thank you.
Kwara State, already we know that the incumbent in that state is not going for a re-election. He's done his 2-term, and now we're getting to see your party come into the fray. Now, first, let's start by letting the people know what you're not the everyday politician. You've always been in business, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. I've always been in business, but due to exigencies of time, I think it's about time people like us also join the mainstream politicians. But be that as it may, for me, life itself is about politics. You know, every day of our life, we have politics to do in our homes, you know, in our friendship with people, interaction with people. Yeah, but the core business called politics, yes. We've decided to come into this game.
Many would have thought that Kwara State is doing pretty well, and perhaps maybe the party, the governing party in Kwara State is doing well. So why would the New Progressive Movement come up to say they would want to, take over from where they left off?
Well, I'm not sure about the word doing well. And for me, I think it's subjective. It depends on the divide and how you say it. But for us, we don't think Kwara is doing well. This is not the Kwara that we used to know in our time. You know, in the late 70s, early 70s. This is not the Kwara that I grew up to know. But for me, I think a lot of things can be done differently, you know, and it involves a lot of revolution, aggressive thinking, innovation, and changing the narratives, you know, essentially, you know. I mean, we can't continue this way. I mean, a lot of structures are down, a lot of problems here and there, you know. Teachers are not well trained, you know, doctors, you know, I mean, the healthcare is really, really bad, you know. For me, I don't think, you know, I mean, Kwara is doing well, you know, maybe in some areas, but largely not.
I'm excited you spoke, you know, you just mentioned the healthcare, and that's one issue I want you to speak more on, because knowing full well you actually, I think you're very passionate about health services. But again, let's speak about the new progressive movement. It's quite new, a political party, isn't it?
Yes. It's a relatively new party, you know, that was born from the ideology of the younger ones, you know, the youth, you know, coming into the business of politics, and changing the narratives as well, you know, and that's why the motto says success is from God, you know. I mean, we don't believe that we must desperately have positions, but I think it's about time narratives change, and I think the picture 2019, you know, presents to me is a lot of surprises all over the nation, you know, because some of us decide not to go with the mainstream because we don't think anything has changed. You have people wearing black today. The same person has changed clothing from black to white on a Sunday. You know, what has changed? It's only the clothing that has changed.
You think Nigerians are really ready to see new faces, new names, new party, new insignia, logo, motto, and vision?
I strongly believe so, you know. Maybe the mainstream politicians don't, you know, but I strongly believe so. There's a lot of awareness. It also goes from, you know, the traffic you see when people get their PVCs, you know, people are engaged, you know, people want to know what's going on. People are aware, the younger generations, most especially, you know, who are very, 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 very attentive to their own future. What does it present for them? You know, so for me, I think a lot of things, it's about individuals, not about parties, really. So if you have a very solid individual that can deliver on issues, not on hate speeches, we are not in the business of hate speech. We want to tell you what we want to do differently, you know.
So who is Abdulazeez Oniyangi?
Oh. Well, Suleiman Abdulazeez Oniyangi is the man right in front of you. I was born in 1967. You know, my father is Dr. Abdulkadir Oniyangi, one of the first Northern Nigerian medical doctors. And my mother, Alhaja Memunat Oniyangi, you know, and I have my siblings, there are 6 of us. I schooled in Ahmadu Bello University, the largest university south of the Sahara. I also schooled in government secondary school in Lorry, you know, which has its, the motto which says in Arabic, Majada wa Jada, no struggle, no success. And those are one of the things that, you know, pushed me to the limits of where I am today, you know. And I started my career in Nigerian Reinsurance Corporation, you know, where I also attended the famous Richelieu Dennis Risk Management School in the Gambia, you know, and finished with a distinction, you know. From there, you know, moved to Leadway Pension. You know, I was one of the pioneer contributory pension industry players, you know, after which I led for ARM, you know, the ARM pension managers. Then from there I moved to Lotus Capital, the first Islamic finance investment, as an assistant vice president, you know. And I was part of the team that also assisted in the floating of the first sukuk, you know, that you have in Osun State, you know, that did the educational sector. After which I decided to do my own thing, you know, and I started with event management. I think, looking back and looking at my career, the way it has gestated, I think I I'm adequately prepared for this because I worked in the admin department, I worked in the corporate research and development department dealing with qualitative statistics, you know, so also the non-bank financial services as well.
You know, if you look at Kwara State, you would agree that Kwara is a state that you know, places, you know, that place emphasis on names, you know, and values for some people. And going through your biodata, I realized that your father was an honest man, and so was your mother from the Idiagbon family. Is it the same Idiagbon of blessed memory, Tunde Idiagbon? Were they siblings or related?
Well, with all sense of humility, my mother, I'm his nephew, really, you know, and my mother is the eldest surviving Idiagbon leader. I mean, you know, in the Idiagbon family. May Almighty Allah bless his soul. And from them, we've learned the values of integrity. We've learned the values of honesty. You know, we rather lose than play the usual game. You know, we've learned to be very disciplined. Let our word be our word. Let our bond be our bond. You know, we've gone through all this. I seem not to have a choice, you know, but to follow the training that we've been given, you know. So if you have anybody coming from those families, you can go to bed and be excited, you know. You know,
people will vote.
Yes.
And of course, the voters must actually buy into what you're saying. Yeah. So even though for the governorship, you know, the campaigns are not, you know, have not started, what's the vibe you get when you go around Kwara State?
Well, I think it's a case of mixed feelings. I'll be honest with you. You know, I went to an area that is so close to the state specialist hospital. You know, and when I interacted with people, because if you want to govern an environment, so you want to be a leader of people, you first need to hear them out and understand their needs. You know, it's not just what you want to give to them. You can only give to them what they want you to give to them. And when you understand their problems, I could see that water has been a huge problem in the States. And don't let us even go to the healthcare sector, you know, that I'm so passionate about, you know. But I can tell you, it's really bad out there. But what is comforting to me is when, you know, people see people like us, you know, greenhorns coming in, you know, onto the field. You want to do this, and you honestly tell them how you want to do it, and they feel more secured. And with the family background also, it gives them more of comfort zone. So what choice do we have?
I know you don't see this coming. When we spoke on phone and I tried bringing you all the way from Kwara to come to live on the show, you said you had an emergency on your hand. You spoke to me about a baby. Without dropping the name, I would like you to maybe recount and tell, you know, my viewer watching, because this is tied to your health, you know, care plans. You said you had a baby. You were supposed to give some Medicaid.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yes, I don't want to talk about that episode, but the parts I want to talk about, you know, because by healthcare, there's what we call Hippocratic clause, you know, so you don't really want to talk about your patient so much, and the name.
That's why you don't have to give the name,
but
I need a sense
but
of
the
that.
lesson I picked from that is that all over this country is so sad and bad that we don't have a pediatric cardiac surgeon who could save this baby. That was really painful. And I keep saying to everybody, I don't care if you steal the money, but invest the money in your environment, as long as it gives value addition. You know, I mean, if you don't have that, what do you expect? I mean, it's so sad. And not just that, I've had a lot of cases, you know, other cases that, I mean, diagnostic is a major challenge in Nigeria. We have very fantastic doctors, I'll be honest with you, you know, but a doctor cannot be a champion without a proper diagnostic system. No doubt about that.
So are you thinking of, you know, bringing such to Kwarans? Because when we talk about, you know, the problems in some of these states, it's as good as, well, you know, picking up a document in the 60s and 70s, and without even, batting an eyelid, you can easily tell what will happen in the 80s and 90s and on, because it will seem as if, well, the problems have always been there.
Right.
So what would you be bringing to change the narrative for your people if elected?
Yeah, in terms of healthcare?
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to tell you this. Quite some years ago, a friend of mine who is from Ilorin, from Kwara State, we were discussing and asked her, what do you tell your people? What do you tell your friends that you invite to Kwara State? What kind of thing is this, what kind of star attraction do they get, coming to Kwara State? And don't tell me Kwara State is a state of harmony. Harmony is everywhere, please, okay? And the person said, that's true. So why don't you think about it this way? Why not Kwara State the home of healthcare? Look, Nigeria, we have a problem with medical tourism. As of 2015, Pricewaterhouse PwC statistics says we spend about 2.5 billion US dollars in capital flights in medical tourism. Out of 180 million Nigerians, 30,000 Nigerians spend that money in a year. 60% of those 30,000 go to the favorite destination of India because of cost. 60%. Now, the other 40% go to the traditional locations of US, UK, Cairo, Sudan, Dubai, And I said to you, why don't you just think out of the box and say, why can't...
Did you just say Sudan?
Sudan, yes. Sudan is a very excellent hub for medical tourism. Why don't you just say to yourself and say, why can't Kwara State take just 100 million US dollars from that amount of money in medical tourism inbound? Inbound. And what do you need to do? Identify the favorite locations that these people go to in India. Apollo's, Fortis, Saudi German Hospital, King's College Hospital in UK, Cromwell, and say, you know what? You guys, we're building structures. What we need is your brand, and train our indigenous doctors and bring in modern equipment. Not the kind of CT scan that is just 6 slides you have. We're talking about 128. We're talking about 3 Tesla in MRI. And train them, because you have very awesome individuals. Capital, we have very awesome doctors in this country. And because of brand, what you'll have done is you would have reduced about 1.5 million cost of travels and hotels for the patient and the accompanying relative. Look, from 2.5 billion US dollars, you get $100 million annually. That's an awesome high GR.
Giving out all the statistics, what really comes to mind now has to do with this, culture with the old politicians always running away from debates. A chunk percentage of them have never liked the idea of coming before the people to spell out their plans and articulate how they can achieve all of these. Now, you have said all of that. If you were to come before the people of Kwara, along with other contestants, in a debate, what would be, apart from health, which is very, very vital and key here in your plan, what other thing would you want them to quickly understand and convince them that it is achievable when you come in?
Yes. For me, there are 3 major fundamentals that change a nation. And realistically, not textbook: agriculture, healthcare, and education. But it's just obvious out there. If you have a poor education system, you've destroyed generations now, generations tomorrow, and forever. Then you start asking yourself practical things. What has gone wrong with the educational system? Is it a function of you don't have the right teachers? My mother was a teacher. I know value of teachers. You don't expect a teacher that is paid 15,000 naira to teach a child the way the child needs to be taught. You don't expect an environment where you use chalk when we're talking of magic board. And for me, if you pick all these teachers, we write resume, and you train them, expose them, I'm sure they will deliver on their set goals. If you get education rights, you get agricultural rights. And agriculture, what do you need? You can go out of the box and float fiqh muamalat. It's an Islamic instrument to finance agricultural products. And Kwara State is blessed. If you go to the Kwara North, that's the home of agriculture in this country. And you have, like Patigi, for example. You say Kebbi State produced millionaires. I can tell 1,000 millionaires. Patigi will produce 10,000 millionaires. And another byproduct there, over the River Niger Plain, you also have the Patigi Regatta, which was conceived in 1950 by the Traditional Council of Patigi Emirate Council, as at the time of Etu Umoru Bologi and Aman Patigi, inaugurated in 1953. So you see fishing in there. You can have a resort. And corporates from Lagos would like to go, for a retreat to plan the strategy sections like you have in Fifth Choka in Kaduna.
Does your state still have the white South African farmers?
Well, I read about that. I've not seen, because for me, it's amazing, because from my understanding of finances, I know that if you produce agricultural products within your environment, the first beneficiaries will be the people in that environment before you start exports. What are you exporting? I've not seen the export. I've not seen the advantage of my citizens. That's the reality.
Let's close on this.
Yes,
and
please.
it has to do with, should you be elected, governor of Kwara State, what are the quick fixes you want to quickly bring to the people?
Well, for me, you see, employment is too key. We complain that we have bad boys out there. There's virtually no family in Kwara State that's not affected. But the bottom line is, nobody wants to be a mad person on the street if they have things to do. And that's one of the strategies that we are using right now to reach out to wards, to groups, to understand their pains, and the choice belongs to them. So when we come on board, employment is too strategic. I was interacting with a group of young boys about 3 days ago, and I discovered that they love playing football. And I said to them, what does it cost the government to just say, hey, lump yourself together, that's another career. Let me send you to academic schools in Cairo. Al-Ali is there. Don't even go to Chelsea, Man U, and all those areas. Go to Greece, go to Belgium. Don't forget people like Stephen Keshi started in Belgium. Send them to all these schools, because they never believed they could attain that goal. You send them there, they work very hard, they get signed up, then they become breadwinners for their families. And it also have they will also bring investment, because they're going to retire someday. So you have to understand, those are the things, you have to expose a lot of people. But let me tell you, things are so bad in Kwara that it's not about party. I keep laughing when people say, this party is big, No, tell me who can fix the problem. You'll be wasting your energy to say you want to change the narratives, you want to change the people, and you can't change the economy. What has changed if you can't change an economy? What makes a people? So for me, I think ours is focused on economy, empowerment, market women. You can put them into clusters, and give them a lot of, the ones that are Islamically inclined, you can give them like a Musharaka transaction, Mudaraba transaction, you have a lot of microfinance companies doing so well, Balogu Fulani Microfinance. How you look at it, how do you support them? How do you make them grow from their little nests? You want to make them grow into regional banks. from regional banks they come to national banks. These are things, you have to really be honest to do.
I know this, the conversation, we'll keep the conversation going till we get to D-Day, which is election day.
Yes,
if we had all the time. And by the way, on Political Stew, we don't have such, qualification for parties as major or big or any other, but we say you're the governing party or you're not even the ruling party. Would like to say many thanks, Abdulazeez Oniyangi, for coming on this show this evening. With the hope that we'll have you again, and best wishes in your pursuit.
Thank you so much, Suleiman, for hosting me. I'm so glad to be here and look forward to coming here again. Thank you so much.
When we return, he said something about football, and perhaps we'll see how best we can actually tackle all of that and see if we actually can be a little bit mathematical in the political fray. That's when we return.